What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the AEW Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of Pro Wrestling News Hub, covering pro wrestling and not sports entertainment. On this week's show, the origins of the AEW Impact relationship, AEW action figures update. Of course, you could see my awesome Ray Phoenix back there. So more figures coming soon, plus a recap of Dynamite Dark and, of course, the ratings as usual. So how do you get in touch with the show? Email podcast at prowrestlingnewshub.com with your MP3s or call 888-430-7692 extension 3. Cutoff time is 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And remember to leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We will read it on the show. And always like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is growing, and we definitely want to do more stuff with that. So check that out as well. We appreciate that. One thing we want to talk about before we get into the week's news and such is what's going on in our fantasy world this week. So the site's been doing good. We've been having pretty good, got a couple of drafts that came this week. And we are also in the process of adding more updates to this fantasy app. So I'm pretty excited about that. So stuff like notifications, working on that, making the draft experience and the web experience a little bit better. So if we take a look at this week, the top wrestlers of the week was Isaiah Cassidy. Mark Quinn is not showing up there, and it's something I got to figure out why, because I think it's just the query here is not totally correct. Adam Page, Alex Reynolds, Chris Jericho, and Cody Rhodes are some of the names, big name wrestlers this week on AEW Fantasy that did really well. Isaiah Cassidy, just because he appeared, and Private Party and Matt Hardy, they all appeared on Impact Wrestling, different show. We don't track any of that kind of stuff. Someday, I had thought, depending on how big this gets with the fantasy wrestling thing, about incorporating not only like Ring of Honor, like once things really open up, and we'll see, and if fans want it, or incorporating not only your roster of, you have Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, and AEW, and mix them all together in one super huge fantasy thing would be kind of cool too. So that's what we got going on in the fantasy world. Question of the week this week. I want to get your thoughts on the AEW Impact Wrestling relationship. The ratings have kind of come down a little bit, but that was a big surprise about getting Matt Hardy and Private Party involved. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. Are you watching it? I know it's kind of difficult to watch. It's on Twitch, and I have to check. We have an article out there. One of our guys wrote about how you can find Impact Wrestling on your television stuff. So I'm curious to hear what you guys' thoughts about that. So with that being said, without further ado, let's just get into the week. Plus, we got Mr. Fourth Row, Salty Sea Dog checking in, and all of our social media stuff. We'll get to that at the end of the show. So without further ado, folks, let's just get into the week that was AEW. Results for this week's AEW Dynamite for January 20th. First, we kick off the show with -1's birthday party match. Hangman Adam Page, Dark Order, Colt Cabana, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds versus the Hybrid 2, Angelico and Jack Evans, and Chaos Project, Luther and Serpentico. However, I'll give Luther credit. He was good on the mic, played the heel role. It was a good way to kick off the night. Winner, Adam Page in the Dark Order. I gave this a 3.75. Sorry, friends. It was a little funny segment with Little Brody talking some trash, some Little Brody Jr. That was good. And of course, turns out that Adam Page turns down joining the Dark Order. So Page does not turns down the Dark Order, wants to go out on his own. That was kind of the big news out of that match. But it was a great way to kick off the night. MJF and Chris Jericho check in, talking all sorts of smack, how they're going to win everything, blah, blah, blah. Sting and Darby Allin check in. Of course, then we get Taz checking in, and the Taz's Team Taz as well, talking about doing some kind of street fight. Now, the question is, and it wasn't answered, does this include Sting in this street fight? But Darby Allin says yes, he's definitely involved and interested in that. We'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of getting a little bored with the whole Sting just showing up and like what's going on there. But I'll tune in and keep finding out. The Elite check in. The Young Bucks go to Kenny Omega's house. Of course, we have this beautiful picture that they showed of Kenny Omega and Don Callis. I commented on social media that I wanted to buy that at AEW Shop and put in my living room. I was joking, but some little fracas goes down between Callis and the Young Bucks. We'll check in with that in a little bit. Cody Rhodes versus Pretty Peter Avalon. I had thought Pretty Peter Avalon was like a pretty well-known indie wrestler with good game. I was kind of disappointed in this match and disappointed in him. I thought maybe we could really see what he was made of. Winner Cody Rhodes 3.50. Jade Cargill comes out, interrupts things in the beginning, but then Cody goes on to win the match. And this was just kind of a snoozer match for me. Jungle Boy and Dax Hardwood, we get that next week. They have a little trash talking time, so that should be a good match for next week. Jon Moxley comes out. I thought pick Danny Limelight would be his guy, but Nick Caramato was his matchup tonight. Big guy. We've seen him on AEW Dark a bunch of times, and I commented if you play AEW Fantasy Wrestling and you had him on your squad, even though he lost, though he was still on Dark and on Dynamite, which is really good. Moxley gets to win. I gave this a 3.25. It was just kind of boring. Not really too into it. I wasn't really into Comorado, and then Moxley, it just kind of seemed sloppy, and it just wasn't into it. So 3.25. Lance Archer versus Eddie Kingston. We'll get that next week. That should be a good one. Again, I'm always love Eddie's character, just his ring skill. I haven't been too interested in. We'll see what Lance Archer does to him. Kenny Omega checks in and sees what happens to Don Callis' face, so he's a little mad about that. Then we have Matt Hardy and Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn versus Matt Sydal and Top Flight, Darius and Dante Martin. This one was what match I was looking forward to a lot. Winner, Matt Hardy and Private Party. I gave this a 4.0. This was Elite Match of the Night. A lot of high spots, but there was also a little sloppiness in there too. When with you guys, these guys flying around, but a lot of innovative stuff. I enjoyed this match. I didn't really, I was like, maybe Top Flight will win, but I'm like, no way. Private Party is going to win because they have all this stuff going on with Impact Wrestling, so there's no way they were going to lose. I like now that Private Party is kind of bad guys along with Matt Hardy. We'll see if Private Party can take this somewhere. They're definitely getting a push, and we'll see where that takes them. But it was a good fun match, and my Elite Match of the night. Inner Circle checks in. MJF trying to pump up the troops. We'll see how that goes. Singles match, Layla Hirsch versus Penelope Ford. This one was a little sloppy at times, but Layla had a big spot in there too. I'm really impressed with her. Penelope, she was okay. I think this was a kind of a last-minute thing for her. She's gotten better, but I think more Layla carried the match. There was a lot of grappling in the beginning, but winner Penelope Ford, of course, kept messing that up. They gave this a 3.25 because there were spots in it. It definitely had me interested, and Layla Hirsch had me interested in the match as well. Maybe that she could pull it out. Then we had the whole thing with Miro and Charles Taylor, he kept referring to, which I like this gimmick. Then Orange Cassidy was in the crowd. So I really like what's going on between Charles Taylor and Miro. I think he's playing a good job as the bad guy. And now he wanted Charles Taylor to say that Miro was now his new best friend. Great stuff. I really like what's going on with this. But Penelope Ford with the win. Gave it a 3.25 because I thought it was a good match. Then we had Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers beat up Penta for some reason. Anybody explain why Penta got beat up and not anybody else? Then we finally got the Inner Circle Tag Team Challenge. Santana and Ortiz, MJF and Chris Jericho versus Sammy Guevara and Hagar. Funny that they had a little spot with Sammy Hagar in there. And Chris Jericho almost knocked himself out doing his lion salt. It was a good match. Chris Jericho and MJF with the win. I gave it a 4.0. Again, I'm thinking Chris Jericho needs to kind of wrap this up. But I'm really disappointed that it is Chris Jericho and MJF. It shouldn't be. I'm not really sure why. I mean, I know Chris Jericho is a big draw and they're paying him a lot of money. It's Jericho and Hardy. I'm like, I don't think we needed that push in the beginning. I'm not really sure. I like Jericho on commentary. I just feel like every time he's in the ring, him and Hardy, I'm like, dude, you guys are like old and slow, and especially when he tried to do the lion salt or whatever it's called, and basically he landed head first. I was like, and we've talked about his physique lately. I'm a little worried about Chris Jericho. He just needs to get, I don't know, a little bit better shape. I think he looks a little bit better now. So Chris Jericho and MJF get the win, and that is it for this week's AEW Dynamite. Card for next week's January 27th AEW Dynamite. This will be taped this week. A reminder, you can play fantasy wrestling at ProWrestlingNewsHub.com if you're interested, and having a little bit of extra fun when you're watching these shows. So first up, the tag match, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, and the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, versus Dark Order, Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds. Not really sure how this is going to go with the Young Bucks and the Good Brothers together after the whole Callis thing on Dynamite. Not really sure where that goes. That will be your match of the night. Eddie Kingston versus Lance Archer. That should be a good match as well. Cody responds to Shaq finally. Do we going to get what's going on after Jade Cargill interrupted Cody's match? Are we going to get something going on? Maybe Shaq shows up at Beach Bash, perhaps? Singles match, Dax Harwood versus Jungle Boy. This should be a good match. I'm really curious to see how Dax Harwood does on his own. Jungle Boy can hold his own with anybody in the ring and always has an entertaining match. So we'll see how that goes. That's on for next week. On 2 weeks, we've got Beach Bash. We got the Penelope Ford Kip Sabian wedding. That's going to be a kind of featured thing. Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker. I'm totally into that one. That should be a great match. Two of the better women wrestlers in AEW, even though we're not sure where Thunder Rosa, who is wrestling for. And it was also announced a tag team battle royal for a title shot at Revolution. Remember, Revolution's at the end of February, the next pay-per-view. That should be fun. We'll see where that goes. Maybe Santana and Ortiz get a shot there. And then the main event was announced. It would be Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson versus Jon Moxley, Pac, and Rey Fenix. That will be your main event for Beach Break. All right, let's go over our quick recap of AEW Dark for January 19th, 2021. First up, Luchasaurus defeated Brandon Cutler. I was a little surprised. This was a pretty good match, and having these two guys go at it. It was kind of build up on BET, so that made it kind of cool and interesting. Sammy Guevara defeated El Australiano. That was a great match. I mean, El Australiano is pretty good, and Sammy Guevara, of course, put on a good show as well. Scorpio Sky defeated Nick Caramonto. Shanna defeated Marty Daniels. The Butcher and the Blade defeated Baron Black and Mike Verna. The Gun Club, Billy, Austin, and Colton defeated Adam, Priest, Ryzen, and Vari Morales. Santana and Ortiz defeated Danny Limelight and John Cruz. We had a Peter Avalon segment. Not really sure what the heck is going on with that. Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy, Mark Quinn defeated Aaron Solo and Lee Johnson. Big Swole defeated Alex Gracia. She's been getting some run there. Sonny Kiss defeated Zach Clayton. No worries that Sonny Kiss is injured. Top Flight, Darius Martin and Dante Martin defeated AJ Kirsch and Casey Navarro. Diamante and Ivelisse defeated Catalina Perez and Tesha Price. The Acclaimed Anthony Bowens, Matt Castor defeated my man, Fuego del Sol and Sean Dean. And the Lucha Bros, yes, Penta El Zero Miedo and Rey Fenix defeated Chaos Project, Luther, and Serpentico. And that concludes this week's Dark. Ratings are in for the Wednesday, January 20th edition of AEW Dynamite. They were released today, and according to a report by Showbuzz Daily, AEW finished 33rd overall for the night. And for the third week in a row, they were down, but this time didn't have to do with the Hall of Famer guy. It had to do with President Biden's inauguration. So things should get back to normal, finally, next week. Dynamite drew 854,000 viewers, up from last week's 762,000 viewers. They finished 31st overall last week. Dynamite was live this week at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Show featured the Inner Circle Tag Team Challenge. NXT drew 659,000 viewers, up from last week's 551,000 viewers. It finished 67th overall. Last week they finished 70th. The show featured Timothy Thatcher versus Tommaso Ciampa in a fight pit. The total combined wrestling audiences for both shows was up 1.513 million viewers. It was 1.313 million total viewers last week. So a lot of people watching TV, and the total amount of viewers went up. Based on the ratings, CNN took 14 of the top 15 spots, with MSNBC taking number 14. CNN and MSNBC took all of the top 25 spots because of the presidential inauguration. Fox News, interestingly enough, its top show came in at number 29. The top-rated non-news shows was MTV's Challenge Double Agent. That came in at 26. ESPN's NBA game around 8 p.m. That came in at 30. And then AEW Dynamite, of course, coming in at number 33. This should be, hopefully, the final news cycle dominating. And when we get into that last show in January, and then going into February, it should be a pretty quiet time. You might have some NBA games, you might have some NHL games, but nothing like this press coverage as things start to chill out in the United States of America, and we can get back to what we do best, which is watching TV and especially watching some wrestling. Some AEW news and notes for this week. First up, Jeremy Powder of Jazzware announced the lineup for the Series 4 AEW Unrivaled action figure series. It includes Santana, Ortiz, Matt Hardy, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, and Sammy Guevara. So Santana and Ortiz and Sammy Guevara will have their action figures for the first time. Mrs. Matt Hardy's first time as an AEW guy. And of course, Cody and Kenny, this will be their second action figure. So he also announced that there's going to be an Unmatched series coming as well. Stay tuned for that. So you'll have Unrivaled series action figures, and you'll have Unmatched guy action figures as well. Give me them all now. AEW announced the Women's World Championship tournament on this past Dynamite. So the number one contender to the AEW World Champion, of course, Hikaru Shida, is going to take place. Interesting, that is the World Championship Eliminator Tournament, and there's an American flag on the left and a Japanese flag on the right. Who will be the number one contender? We will find out soon, but it's definitely something pretty cool coming down the pike from AEW. Tony Khan was on the oral sessions with Renee Paquette, Mrs. Moxley, and they spoke about what's going on with the third hour of television. He said, quote, "I'm really excited about adding a third hour of television. That's going to be the most important thing for us. We've accumulated so much talent and depth and being able to showcase all of our great wrestlers," close quote. Khan then said that the third hour of television will not be a third hour of AEW Dynamite, and it will not be on Wednesdays, but it will be a third hour with Time Warner Media and get a great exposure for them. So they're keeping dark. They're doing something with Time Warner for this third hour, and he says he's still sticking with the 4 pay-per-views and everything going forward. So the question is, where is this new hour of television going to appear? And you would think that they have to make an announcement very soon. Tony Khan recently talked about with Renee Paquette in the Oral Sessions podcast where this whole idea of the partnership between AEW and Impact came from. Tony Khan said that Kenny Omega asked him about it and that it was an idea he thought was great. Khan then said he gives 100% of the credit to Omega, quote, "He asked me about it. I love good ideas. This was something Kenny brought up that I thought was a great idea. I give Kenny 100% of the credit." Khan then talked about Kenny showing a different side of himself and showing people a different character and so on and so forth. So it was Kenny Omega's idea to merge, do some stuff with Impact Wrestling. Tony Khan liked it, and that's where we're at today. Too sweet, woo woo. I hear people say that all the time. AEW files to trademark the too sweet term. So currently they're in the process of acquiring the rights of Too Sweet. On January 11th, AEW started legal proceedings with the United States Patent and Trademark Office to acquire such rights, according to Heel by Nature. It's understood that they filed the trademark for merchandise and entertainment services by a professional wrestling or group. Where does this lead? This is not the Bullet Club. Now, wrestling fans of a certain age will know that the Too Sweet signature was created by the Click, featuring Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. It was then used by the NWO Bullet Club and is now currently in AEW as well as Impact Wrestling, with the Young Bucks, Good Brothers, and Kenny Omega doing it. We'll see if they can knock down this one. God, could you imagine the Bullet Club coming to AEW? That would be huge. AEW's schedule for the next couple months, there was some reports that maybe they would move to Miami. Well, it looks like they will be continuing to have all of their shows and everything take place in Jacksonville, Florida. That will remain their home starting next month, or this month. Based on a report, AEW planned on moving to Miami for their weekly episodes for Dynamite and Dark for the month of February. It was also reported that the company's Revolution pay-per-view would be taking place in Miami along with the Beach Break. An announcement was also made this past episode of Dynamite will be taking place, talking about a February 24th episode in New Jersey. That has been rescheduled for September, so this means basically they're staying there. Sources with AEW said that their shows will remain inside Daly's Place in Jacksonville for the, quote, indefinite future, close quote. When we will get the first shows outside of this, maybe April and May, they would start moving around once the numbers start to go down and people start to get outside more and maybe being able to do events outside. But the fans are still coming for Jacksonville. And if I lived in Jacksonville, I'd be going for every taping as well. So get out there, Jacksonville. Go to some shows. You're going to have a couple more months of it. And then it's probably going to be a long time before they return to Jacksonville. Did you know you can get all the latest AEW news right from your phone? That's right, we're excited to announce the Pro Wrestling News Hub app. That's right, and it's free. You can get it for your iPhone. You can get it for your Google Android phone. And they're both free. You get all our breaking AEW news, information from Pro Wrestling News Hub right from your phone. You can just visit the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. What do you get? You get the latest news from Pro Wrestling News Hub. You get push notifications when a new post or story comes out. You get our podcast on the phone. You can leave us a review on iTunes, links to our social media, and so much more. All you have to do is, if you have an iPhone, go to the iTunes store and just look up Pro Wrestling News Hub and download it. Just type in AEW News. You can get our phone app, and guess it is free, my friends. It's free. So head over. You get all the latest news right from your phone, from your friends from Pro Wrestling News Hub, whether you have an iPhone or an Android. And it's best of all, it's free. All right, let's get into the social media stuff first. James says, can you help? I tried several links from different websites, including your in the subscription, and no voting options appear for me. It just opens into a Turner Entertainment International website with nothing about AEW or voting. My thing, James, is probably, well, it's closed now, but I wonder if that was only open to United States people. But did you vote for the awards? I certainly did. It should be a lot of fun when that comes out, which is actually next week, too, on the 27th. Mr. Mike 307, talking about the AEW NXT ratings, he says, hypocrites! You find all these excuses for AEW, but don't give Raw any excuses. I don't like Raw, and you get no excuses. And I spent years in the Impact or in the WWE world, ImpactWrestling.com, AllWrestling.com, making excuses for WWE. I don't like it. It sucks, so I don't watch it. But you can waste your time and be pissed off and watch it too. On to the to the Twitter, talking about reaction. Frankie with a bunch of numbers says the I asked about which match are you looking forward to the most. He said the Inner Circle matchup, which I thought was a really good match. He also says, talking about Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers win that Hard to Kill event, he said outstanding interview with Don Callis that we should check out. Definitely, I like him on the mic. He has been good on the mic, and I think he is what Kenny Omega needed for his character to take it to another level, because he's been great on the mic. Let's see. Mr. Fourth Row says, so I hear the winning Powerball ticket was sold in Maryland. Wonder if it was us. No, but I will tell you that I know the area that it was sold from, and it is the out in the boonies kind of thing. So, but no $700 million from me. Could you imagine the amazing website? I mean, I would hire like a full staff. I'd probably start my own wrestling promotion if I got that kind of money. But I wouldn't tell you if I did anyways. So, all right, let's get to some emailers. First up, Sugar Ninja says, hey guys, I play a great fantasy game for WWE, NXT, AEW. DropTheBelt.com. You guys should check it out. It is incredible. I saw it. I knew it was out there. My only issue was that you had to pay for it. I thought about using just to compare with what we got going on, but my thing is mine will be free and it will be better. Just talking trash because, hey, this is what my expertise as in software engineer, and I can pretty much build anything if I have the time and the resources to do it. So I feel like I can make an awesome game, and it just keeps improving. I just uploaded a bunch of new things today, which makes it pretty cool too. So now on our fantasy app, you can click on the wrestler's name. You get to see their stats, how they've done over the course of the last since we've been tracking them. So, and then also now when you go to the waiver wire, for example, it will order the list based on the amount of points they've gotten so far. So, you think like, oh, well, like, Miro or something like that should pick. But actually, you take a guy like Austin Gunn, who wins always on Dark, and hey, their guys are getting the points. So it's really interesting to check out the data as we move along. And speaking of our fantasy football, our fantasy wrestling family, Salty Sea Dog checking in says, first private party earns #1 contender match on Impact. It almost seems like AEW are the heels with Jerry Lynn helping Private Party cheat as Tony Khan looked on. This AEW Impact feud is very confusing to me. We were just talking about that. Then the angle with the Elite deepens with Don Callis stirring the pot. It seems like he is bent on driving Kenny and the Young Bucks apart. It'll be interesting how the Young Bucks and Good Brothers work together next week. I thought that was an interesting twist, too, putting them together. The Dark Order looks like they are full baby faces now. Well, they have to be. It was heartbreaking and funny to see Adam Page say no to them. This angle is not over. I agree with you there. I don't think that this angle is quite over yet. Fantasy wrestling was fun this week. Looking forward to next week. Cool. We are looking forward to it as well. It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to play. It keeps you interested in what's going on, and you pick your favorite wrestlers. And there's definitely more to come as this app grows. And I really think I want to get one good draft in with no issues. And I'm going to probably do that sometime next week. And then I really think it'll be kind of out of this alpha stage and into a beta stage where it's working pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with things so far. And speaking of somebody who is very pleased to know that I did not win the $700 million, it's our man, Mr. Fourth Row.
It's a go. It's a go for another phone call there from Mr. Fourth Row. Hey, AEW Week in Review and Mr. Mark. Let's get right into it and answer the question that was posed to us about women's factions in AEW. I think it's a great idea. One thing that I think that they need to do is make sure they do not put every single woman in a faction and do it right and things of that nature. Now, I kind of think that they already have one kind of teased and started with Anna Jay and Tay Conte. Can we get Tay Conte to kind of take a step over to the dark side, to the Dark Order, and then of course, one thing that they need to be careful about is since they do not have necessarily a lot of women signed to the quote unquote roster, to not overuse everybody there, but could they still maybe pull this off with using those outside talents and have, when they came in, have them show up in the faction and things of that nature. Now, I think Ivelisse and Diamante, because they're, of course, great friends and have done a lot of things as well. Could they start a little LAX type faction, but just include the women? And that's another thing that they need to be careful about, is just don't have the women in a faction, and not have the men accompany them in. And they're going to specifically, of course, zero in on that with the Dark Order. So if they could just have the women of the Dark Order, if they decide to go that way, come out for the match and not have the men even accompany them to the ring, I think that's going to be a great progressive thing that they can do. I'd like to see, maybe Britt Baker start a faction. I think that would be kind of a cool thing. And, I think, if I just had to kind of start maybe pairing people up that they kind of have, I think when Chris Statlander comes back, I think that would be a great thing to kind of go, galaxy nerdy, so could maybe Statlander and Leva Bates kind of team up and kind of things of that nature. So I think the thing with that is when it comes to factions, you kind of have to theme it up. So that's going to be the way that they kind of do that. So there's some of my thoughts and things that they can maybe do and pair up and kind of go that way as well. Additionally, one thing that I have always been thinking about, and they do put this on their rosters, is the trios. When are we going to start getting some trio stuff? And, let's be progressive again. Why not have a lot of trios teams that are 2 men and 1 woman on the trios teams? Because I think they did that in Lucha Underground. So I'm going to, be kind of happy if they kind of get that going. And, is 2021 the year that they kind of get that going and present that to us? I kind of hope that they do. I know that there's always been rumblings to get that, and that would just be another unique thing for AEW to give us the fans with their product. So I just can't wait to see it. But anyways, that's all my thoughts, and as always, that is my view, not from the cheap seats, not from the most expensive seats, but from the 4th row.
There he is, Mr. Fourth Row, checking in. Take Conte in the Dark Order. Yeah, I mean, could you do something with her and Paige? I think Paige is going to be on his own. I saw somewhere, maybe it was somebody here or one on our message board, on our Discord, or something like that, was talking about how Paige will be on his own, and then he thinks the long-term play is that Paige will beat Kenny Omega for the AEW championship down the road. So he's going to play this lone wolf thing for a while. and then this Dark Order thing is part of it. Take Conte in Dark Order would be good. Yeah, I know the question of the week was female factions. What do you kind of do now? I mean, we also talked about today on this episode the extra hour, and that kind of goes into the whole trios matches because I agree. Like, where is that? We've seen. I mean, Dark Order could be doing it. The Gun Club is can be doing it. I would use it to protect guys like Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho, as you can do this trio thing. And maybe this isn't because I mean, having Chris Jericho and MJF as the tag team guys coming out of Inner Circle, would that change with Santana and Ortiz poised to leave and start their own faction with Ivelisse and Diamante, perhaps, and maybe throw in somebody else? I mean, I would love to see all of them together. Would be kind of a cool faction in AEW. But yeah, I'm wondering where the trio stuff is coming out because I feel like it's coming, and they have plenty of opportunities to do it. And when I mean, we saw, Matt Sydal and Top Flight as well, and those were great matches. A lot of these trio matches have been really good. So yeah, I'm curious too when that's coming out as well. All right. Thanks, Mr. Fourth Row, Salty Sea Dog, and everybody checking in on the podcast this week. We should have a good week next week with the awards coming out. We'll see what happens with the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks. So it should be a good television, and of course the ratings should bounce back. I mean, we still got 800-something thousand people watching AEW, considering everything going on in the country and watching the news. Everything should chill out. And I think we should see them back in the top 10 again, hopefully next week, maybe with some big numbers. It doesn't matter if they're live or taped. The numbers, I mean, we've seen huge numbers on taped shows. So anyway, that's it from this week. Remember, you can contact us, podcast at prowrestlingnewshub.com with your MP3s or call 888-430-7692 extension 3. Let us know what you think about this whole thoughts on the AEW Impact Partnership. It was cool at first. The ratings are starting to kind of die down. Maybe they'll go back up. But I'm curious to see if any of you guys have tuned in. And was it must-see TV on Tuesdays for you? I'm curious about that. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, of course, and always like and subscribe, especially to our YouTube channel as we rebuild that as well. All right, my friends, that's it for me. Remember, we can listen to the show anywhere. ProWrestlingNewsHub.com/AEW-podcast. Fantasy.ProWrestlingNewsHub.com if you want to join us in the fantasy world. It's been fun, and it's been great meeting and getting to know some of the guys that are into it on the Discord, and that's where you can find out. Links are on the show notes for our Discord channel as well. And that's it for me. So thanks for listening. Mahalo. Stay safe out there. Put that mask on. I have a feeling things are going to get good. You just got to be a little patient when we hit the spring, summer. I think we'll be there. God bless, and I will see you all later.